because a number of these conferences are non-for-profit. He visited a conference in Poland where there was the co-founder of C++ who created the C++ language.
So hello everyone, today it's an honor to introduce someone जिन्होंने not just one conference, two conferences, but around 18 to 25 conferences attend किए in the last 1 year या फिर in the last few years. और साथ ही साथ travel opportunities उन्हें मिली हैं to travel to free to USA, Austin, Salt Lake City and Vegas. काफी ज्यादा cities in USA, Spain, all over world आप घूम सकते हो if you have the talent, skills to attend the conference and to speak in a conference. आज इसके बारे में हम in depth बात करने वाले हैं. So watch it till the end आपको ताकि पता चले कि conference के लिए apply कैसे करते हैं and what impacts it makes on your resume. So hello everyone, once again it's an honor to introduce Shivay, who has been mentor for great and one of the biggest hackathon in the world like Hack MIT, Make Harvard. काफी hackathons में इन्होंने participate किया है, जीता हुआ है and mentor भी किया हुआ है. So आज हम बात करने वाले हैं the advantages of conferences because शिवाय ने hackathon के अलावा बहुत सारे conferences attend किए in tech because conferences के आपको अटेंड करने के क्या क्या फायदे होते हैं, इज इट वैल्यूएबल टुवर्ड्स योर प्रोफाइल, लर्निंग, क्या क्या सीखने को मिलता है, विल टॉक अबाउट ऑल इन डेप्थ. सो हाय शिवाय, कैन यू प्लीज इंट्रोड्यूस योरसेल्फ वंस अगेन एंड शेयर योर एक्सपीरियंस विद कॉन्फ्रेंसेस?
Sure, absolutely. Thank you so much, Hanur, and I'm really grateful that you have invited me again to your channel. So just for a very quick introduction, I'm Shivay. I've been working as a software engineer now for the past 2 years. I graduated in 2020, and before my full-time role, I had been active a lot of in a lot of different hackathons. And post that, of course, I've still been involved with a few hackathons as a mentor, as a judge, but I also got into the entire landscape of conferences. And of course, I'd love to share my experience of having been an attendee and also having actually spoken at a number of different conferences and how you can actually apply and why should one attend conferences in general and tech conferences in general to really boost up your career. So I'll be more than happy to share my learnings and how you can get involved in conferences.
Sure. So let's start with your first conference that you ever attended. क्यों attend किया, कहाँ से inspire हुए? Please go for it.
Sure. So my first ever conference experience was back in my third year. So I attended this conference by the name of Pi Data. So there are a number of different Python related conferences that take place all around the world. And because Python itself is having such a huge number of developers and developer communities that are surrounding Python. So within each and every major city in the world, there are a lot of different Python meetup groups. So there is a PyCon, which is one of the largest Python conferences that take place all over the world. And similarly, there's also PyData, which is more inclined towards data science and data practitioners, data engineers. So I actually attended the first ever conference in New Delhi, which is the Pi Data New Delhi conference. And it is again mainly for all those folks and engineers who are either living inside in Delhi or let's say in the Delhi NCR region. And similarly, you have these Pi Data conferences taking place at a regional level and then also at a global level as well. So my first experience was just as an attendee, and I actually happened to meet the co-founder of Julia over there. So that's also the great benefits that you can network with a lot of great people. So just imagine that you are able to meet the co-founders or basically the founders of let's say the co-founder of Linux. I've had the opportunity to also meet Linus Torvalds, who was the creator of Git and the Linux kernel as well. So these events and these conferences really are a great way to interact with some of the best people, the maintainers of large open source libraries, open source projects as well. So it's a very refreshing and a really nice experience to be able to meet such people who have contributed so much to all these different amazing projects as well. So yeah, I mean that conference experience was really great for me, even though at that point of time I had actually just started out learning about Python, learning data science, but I was able to interact and learn quite a lot of great things about how to get started with Python and data science just in my third year. So it was a really enriching experience for me.
That is pretty incredible, meeting the founder. So आपने उस conference में which founder did you get to meet, by the way? in that particular
Yeah, so
conference?
basically, it was the founder of Julia. So if you're not already aware, Julia is a scientific programming language that is kind of an extension to Python, and it's mainly used today. It's an open source language, first of all, and it's used quite a lot for by data scientists for scientific computing and also for machine learning, data science. So yeah, I mean, basically meeting the co-founder of Julia is it's really great, right? And similarly, there are a lot of different conferences where you might see, like, let's say some of the founders of C++. One of my friends recently, visited a conference in Poland where there was the co-founder of C++ who created the C++ language, and he's able to actually meet them. So these conferences present a really great way to be able to network and meet some of the founding fathers of these programming languages or some technologies that have been created. So it's a really enriching experience, I must say.
Wow. Meeting founders of cutting edge technologies. आपको ये भी बताता हूँ कि अभी in this world, lot of companies sponsor for you to go to conferences. For
Yeah.
example, अगर आप किसी company के लिए काम कर रहे हो, like startup or any kind of company, let's say Splunk or let's say HubSpot. These are like not well known, but ये भी बहुत अच्छी companies है, Fortune
Yeah.
500 companies. So they have a budget for you as an employee to attend these conferences. वो कहेंगे in 1 year spend $1,000 including travel, including conferences, so that you can learn and expand your knowledge. क्योंकि अगर आप सीख रहे हो, then you can show that impact in their projects. क्योंकि in this industry, software engineering industry, we spend 40 to 50% of time learning, and they also
Yes.
want us to inspire us to actually learn, go out and learn and implement that knowledge. तो
Yeah.
ये बहुत important चीज है which can actually help you out. Now let's talk about आपने जितने भी अभी conferences attend किए in the last few years after your first conference, आपने क्यों attend किए? What was the motivation behind it, and what was the impact it made in your life?
Yeah, absolutely. So, first of all, I just also like to share that these conferences are not just related to tech, right? I mean, conferences in general, I mean, if you just want to explain what is a conference, right? So, conference is a place where a group of like-minded people are coming, and वहां पर आप देखेंगे कि like there are a number of different sponsors, there are a number of different talks that are being presented on a particular topic or on a range of different topics that are related to whatever that conference has been created for. So, like similarly in tech, there are a number of different conferences that happen on a wide variety of different areas, right? So there are like conferences that will take place on machine learning, data science, or in general around software development, or like let's say related to Kubernetes and the cloud native ecosystem. So you'll find a wide variety of like different conferences, and you'll find conferences of like different sizes, right? There will be some conferences that can be as small as like let's say just 50 people, and there can be large conferences which will have 40, 50,000 people. Some of them like the AWS reInvent, which is conducted by Amazon Web Services. It happens every year in Las Vegas and has like 50,000 plus attendees every year. So it kind of depends on the size and which particular conference you're attending. But the primary goal, as I mentioned, is that it's mainly just to network and connect with the like-minded folks who are like basically practitioners of that technology or even users of that particular technology for which that particular conference is being hosted. So, and that's the number one goal. And of course the other really important aspect is that these conferences are able to showcase to people that what are the latest advancements or what are the different ways in which people are actually utilizing these technologies. So it could either be like the end user examples where companies are like let's say using that particular technology and they're showing the way in which they're using it, or it could be like let's say more from a learning perspective that individuals, if it's like let's say an open source technologies, how individuals have let's say built certain open source projects or they are actually utilizing these projects in their own studies, right? It could either be in research or it could be in some kind of an application that they have developed. So usually these technologies I mean usually these conferences they cater to both the different types of end users. So like the vendors of the technology that you are basically utilizing these technologies in building end-to-end projects, or like let's say individuals who are contributing to these upstream, like they basically like these could be open source projects and they are contributing to these projects and they are sharing their experience. So it kind of depends on both the different ways. So you actually shared like a lot of different companies provide travel sponsorship to their employees, and a lot of times like large companies might be vendors of these particular technologies, or they might be actually hosting their own conferences which are centered around. So we have so many different conferences like the Google I/O. Then we have Google Next, right? Similarly, we have the Facebook Developer Conference. Microsoft has its, I think it's called the Microsoft. Like there are dedicated conferences for Microsoft Azure, AWS with its reInvent. So like there are like dedicated company specific conferences as well. And then there are actually a lot of different organizations. So for example, the CNCF, which is basically the Cloud Native Computing Foundation. There is the Open JS Foundation. So these are like large conglomerates of different individuals and companies coming together to support open source projects, and they have then their own set of conferences. Then there are meetup groups which are conducting their own conferences at a smaller scale. So there are like wide variety of different conferences that you can actually take part in. And again, the main idea behind all of them is to collect and basically bring together everyone in a collective forum to be able to network and get to know about the latest trends in technology around that particular topic, and then be able to, like, let's say, potentially collaborate with each other and network with each other. So I think like that has been primarily the biggest focus for me, to be able to actually network with a lot of these people, because ultimately what will happen is that you can network with these people, like, very similar to in a hackathon that you network with other hackers. At a conference, you're networking with other people who have come with that same kind of a mindset, and you can always collaborate with them in the future. Or if you're, like, let's say, looking for your next job opportunity, there are so many different sponsors at these hackathons, at these conferences, that, like, you can potentially get like job opportunities right then and there at these conferences. So that is also a great way to, like, especially if you're a student and if you're in college, like, attending these conferences can be a really great enriching experience for you, not just about getting to actually know about a particular technology, but also, like, to be able to, like, let's say, network with people who are so much experienced in their fields, right? People from the world's best companies are coming to these conferences. Like, as you mentioned, like, the top Fortune 500 companies also organize their own conferences, and they send their employees to be able to they encourage their employees to go and take part in these conferences. So it's a really amazing experience. And, like, if you get an experience, just go for it. And you can either go attend your local meetups inside of your cities, or you can even attend these large conferences as well.
Wonderful, yeah. So basically, if I have to summarize the benefits, it could be expanding your network. आप LinkedIn पे किसी भी तरीके से you are expanding your network. Also, you are meeting people from similar backgrounds, similar experience, and you are connecting like-minded people together. And last would be, you can use this connection or these connections for future job opportunities या फिर future collaborations जो आप उनके साथ project बना सकते हो. Wonderful, यार. Now, another interesting question would be, how did you find about these conferences? What are the resources students can use to attend these conferences, virtual ho, in person ho, and how to become a speaker? So let's talk about resources first.
Of different conferences that take place either virtually or in person, or even hybrid conferences around the world. So you can always keep a track of such conferences via this site. And when it comes to, like, let's say, speaking at conferences, there are a number of different websites where you can actually apply. So you can actually find some speaking opportunities at cons.tech. Then there is other websites like sessionize.com, papercall.com, practice.com. So these are some of the websites where a number of the different conferences open something that we call as call for proposals.
So ये तो हो गया resources. Now let's talk about how to become a speaker. Can you also share your experience about speaking at the conferences?
So the idea is that at these tech conferences, there are a number of different talks and workshops that are conducted over the duration of the entire conference. Now, a lot of times, some of the larger conferences might have some keynote speakers or some speakers, who they might invite. But at number of these conferences, majority of these conferences, they open up something known as the call for proposals or call for speakers. So what exactly is this? This is basically it could be a Google form, or it could be some kind of a web form, where they invite the users of the community to come and suggest some topics for potential topics for the conferences, where these could be added as, like, let's say, as a workshop or a talk. So you're supposed to be submitting basically a abstract and a title for what you want to present. So it could be anything related to, like, let's say your experience of having utilized that particular technology as a, as a user of that particular technology, or let's say it could be like you have created some kind of a project, or you have used that particular technology inside of, one of the projects that you have built inside of your company, like let's say if you're a employee. So the main idea is to showcase the usability of that particular technology and how one can actually contribute to that technology as well. So basically all these different conferences open up this call for proposals, so you can apply to become a speaker, and then there's a selection committee that basically goes through these list of talk proposals, and they basically handpick some of them which they feel are relevant to the tracks that are represented at that particular conference, and they select these talks, and then they are put up in the overall overall sessions, and basically then whenever these talks are selected, then the invited speakers are requested to present their talks at these conferences. Now, depending on the size of the conference, the conference speakers might be given full reimbursement for their travel. Some, if let's say it's not possible for you to attend in person, then you can give the talk remotely as well, depending on whether the conference is like in a hybrid mode or in a in an in-person mode. So yeah, I mean, if you're interested, if you're passionate about sharing your views about a particular technology, or if, like, let's say you have built an open source project, or if you have actually included that particular technology in any way and you want to present a very interesting use case, you can apply to become a speaker. And just this year I happened to get the opportunity to actually speak at 7 different conferences all around the world, and I'd love to share about that experience as well.
So basically, जब आप speaker बनना चाहते हो, you can apply, and based on your knowledge and experience, वो आपको shortlist करेंगे. It's not a
Yeah,
guarantee, right, कि आपको choose करेंगे, right? So
absolutely.
yeah, so basically based on your experience, आपकी contributions, they would like to share. They would like you to share कि आपने कैसे project बनाया, what was your learnings, so that you can talk about it. And usually कितना जो cover कर देते हैं, जैसे अगर आपको speaker बुलाया जाता है, how much percentage they cover for your travel and food, etc., and stay to that location? 100% cover करते हैं?
Sure. So it kind of depends on the conference itself. As I mentioned that आपको मैंने बताया कि there are some smaller conferences and then there are like larger conferences, right? So usually if you're if the conference is really small and the number of sponsors at these conferences are very less, right? Because number of these conferences are non-for-profit. They are mainly just there to just champion about that particular technology.
Yes,
So sometimes they might not be able to, let's say, cover your travel,
travel.
and they might only cover your stay. Sometimes they might be able to cover half of the entire travel, because we are aware, right, that nowadays it's so expensive. So I've had some conferences where I couldn't actually go in person because they were not able to cover my travel. But some of the conferences, like the Linux Foundation conference, so I've actually attended 3 different Linux Foundation conferences just in this year, and they were in actually different places. So one was in Valencia in Spain, and a couple of them were in Austin, Texas. And
Wow.
the collective amount that I actually received for traveling was $7,500, which is basically
Oh,
$2,500 per conference.
that
So
is
it
so
kind of
amazing.
depends. Yeah.
Yeah,
So it
so
really depends
amazing.
on the type of conference, basically.
Now let's talk about the impact on your resume. तो अब अपने resume में जाकर you can not just say that you have actually attended conference, क्योंकि attended means just आपने एक चीज सीखी है,
Yeah,
but you can now actually say you are a speaker for that conference. You shared your knowledge and experience, because in industry में माना जाता है when you are helping other people impact, तो वो भी बहुत बड़ा होता है. अगर आप किसी की हेल्प करते हो to impact in the project, it is as big as impacting that project. So that is a huge impact at the end of the day जो आप डाल रहे हो, and आपका resume और powerful बन सकता है, right?
absolutely. Yeah, and especially because when you become a speaker, the main agenda for you is so the goal for you shouldn't be that, hey, I've been selected as speaker, I just have to go and speak, right? The idea that why you're submitting a particular talk is that you want to share your experiences with others, right? So that it can potentially impact someone else. So a number of different talks that I gave this year were related to machine learning and WebAssembly. So I've been using machine learning, and basically I've been in my full-time role, I've been involved with a lot of WebAssembly and machine learning. So my goal was to share my learnings from the last couple of years and how it can actually impact those particular technologies, right? So a number of my talks were centered around WebAssembly, and what I basically covered in my talks was that how you can use WebAssembly as a technology to basically power up, let's say, other different technologies like Node.js, or how you basically combine the usage of machine learning with the help of WebAssembly to, let's say, make your machine learning inference faster. So those were the topics that I mainly covered during the recent times. And again, the main agenda for me is, or the main motivation for me to actually present these talks is that how this can be beneficial for the developer community, because ultimately, you are spending your time, and there are a number of different people who are coming to listen to you. So the ultimate goal is that what are the takeaways that they can have. And of course, this is a really enriching experience to add inside of your resume, because some of these conferences are being attended by thousands of people. So one of the conferences that I attended was basically in Spain, in Valencia, which is KubeCon. KubeCon is the largest cloud conference that takes place all over the world. It's attended by tens and thousands of people, and from the world's leading companies like Apple, Google, Microsoft, any other Fortune 500 company. So if you're able to present a talk there, and after I presented my talk, so basically my talk idea was again related to WebAssembly, and right after my talk, I actually had really great interactions with a few folks from VMware who were very interested in the way in which I had basically included WebAssembly, and they were interested to have conversations with me just around my implementation. So you can have such kind of experiences, and you might let's say be approached by some of these companies who might want to let's say partner, or might want to let's say have you on their team. You never know. So the idea is really to how you can create a value by speaking, and how you can create a value and add value to the conference itself. So that's one of the biggest motivations for me. And over this course of this time, so I started at least in this year, last year I gave around 18 conference talks that were that took place virtually. But this year I started with PyCon US. So I basically went to Salt Lake City, Utah, and followed by that I went to Spain. After that I went to Austin a couple of times for Open Source Summit North America, and a JavaScript based conference in North America. And then in between, I also attended a couple of conferences in Netherlands and in Germany. So overall, this experience of attending these conferences is not just about being there and networking, but also how you can actually get value and how you can add value. And especially if you're a student or even a working professional, you can definitely get a lot of value. So even if you're not a speaker, just attending these conferences can become of so much immense value for you.
Totally.
Yeah.
Wonderful, यार. So basically traveling all over the world is so easy अगर आप attend करते हो and आपको funding में मिल रही है. This is a wonderful
Yeah.
perk. But remember, your goal should be to make an impact. आपने अपना 100%
Absolutely.
दिया towards the conferences, and जितने भी advantages, जितने भी आपको actually networking opportunities मिले, they are like side benefits, but your goal
Yeah.
was always to impact. On the side आपको benefit मिला, you got reached out by big tech companies. Wonderful,
Yeah.
yeah. Another step of becoming a speaker is, अगर आपको funding चाहिए, you have to make a competitive application. जब आप apply करते हो
Yeah.
towards applying for a speaker towards a conference. So what are the tips you would like to give when you apply for a conference as a speaker, ताकि आपको
Yeah.
funding मिले?
Absolutely. So that's a really good question, and that's something that actually goes rather unnoticed, because again, the main idea about this call for proposal is that the organizers or the review committee of a particular conference wants to know that what unique thing that you bring to that particular, or what unique perspective or a unique experience that you bring regarding that particular technology or the set of technologies. So always keep in mind that whenever you're having an idea that you want to submit as a proposal, just kind of research about that particular conference. What are the uh, previous talks that have been given? So let's say you were planning to give a talk on introduction to JavaScript or JavaScript 101, but it might be possible that that same conference, or similar talk idea might have already been presented, because as we told that there are so many conferences taking place all around the world. So just do your prior research, in terms of like whether the talk title and the abstract that you're submitting, whether if it has been presented before, right? Because of course, in case it has been presented before, it's very likely that your proposal will be rejected. So very similar to how like you present a hackathon idea, just ensure that you have done your prior research. So similar to a abstract that you submit, just do your research before that. And again, when you're doing your research, also see that what are the different fields or what are the different areas where that conference really focuses on. So for example, if it's like a Python related conference, so like PyCon, this will be mostly relevant to the Python ecosystem. Like let's say what are the latest changes that are taking place in Python 11 or Python 3.11 or 3.12, and then like let's say what are the changes being happening in some of the frameworks within Python. Like let's say what are some of the upcoming frameworks, what are the changes in Django or Fast API, right? So I'm just giving examples. Or you can also take an example of how your talk title or your abstract could be helping the developer ecosystem. Because a lot of these conferences are not just about the changes that are taking place in the in that particular technology. It's also related to how can we improve the developer ecosystem, right, for that particular technology. So do your research and see that, like, based on your experience, how you can create a value, right? And if you have, like, let's say created a project, so you can actually include details about that project. So and now we'll basically also talk about some of the, like, things you should keep in mind when you're basically submitting a proposal. So as we mentioned, that in every call for proposal there are two sections that are always going to be there. There's going to be the title that you have to submit and an abstract. So the title of your app is like basically the title that will actually go and will be shown on the schedule of that particular conference. So your title should be very well representative of what you want to, like, share. So it should be, like, direct and concise. Let's say an example for one of the talk titles or one of the talks that I submitted was powering up Node.js with the help of Rust and WebAssembly. So the talk is very clear in itself, right? That we are going to be talking about how you can power up Node.js technology with the help of two other technologies, which is Rust programming language and WebAssembly. And you can actually tweak around your talk title to make it a bit more, like, entertaining or a bit more, like, special as well. But coming to the next part, which is the abstract. So abstract is kind of like the heart of your proposal, because a lot of these conferences, they they have a very fair review process. So what that means is that they don't know who is submitting the talk proposal. They'll just come across and, like, this the reviewer community will just see the title and the abstract. So you have to ensure that the abstract that you submit, it is concise in nature, and it primarily consists of three parts. So the first part basically describes what type of problem you're trying to solve, right, from that particular abstract. And then the next part that you include is that what exactly, like, you're going to be including inside of your talk. And finally, like, how does this particular talk will help out the entire developer ecosystem, or the developer the developers who are using this technology, right? How will it be beneficial to them? So always ensure that whenever you're creating an abstract, you are adhering to these three different things, like what problem you're trying to solve, then what your abstract or what your talk is going to be all about, and then how does it actually help the developer ecosystem. Some key things that you should not do inside of your abstract: don't make it like a sales pitch. Sometimes what happens is that you might be very, like, passionate about, like, let's say Microsoft Word. So you end up like just praising that, hey, if you use Microsoft Word, then you're going to be winning a competition, or you're going to be, like, be able to make yourself very good at, like, let's say particular technology. So never make, like, a sales pitch about a particular technology. Always ensure that you are representing a particular technology from eyes that, yes, if you use this technology, then you are actually making up, like, you are able to improve your like, let's say your performance while, like, let's say you're building some kind of a tool, or, like, let's say you're able to improve your DevOps life cycle. So I'm just giving an example, right? So that's something that is really important. And also what is important is that you are respectful to the developer audience, right? So the kind of language that you use, always use like third party, third in the third sense, right? So you don't refer to that, hey, like, I will be presenting at this conference, because this abstract is something that will be going on the website and during the, like, in the schedule of the website. So these are some of the things that you have to be very you have to be very aware of, because if you are not able to like present that, okay, how will this particular talk be beneficial to the audience of
Mhm.
that particular conference, then it's very likely that your talk will not get selected. So always try to add value through the abstract that you create. Now there might be some additional sections that one could be that what are the benefits to the audience, right? What are the benefits and what is exactly is the audience? Because of course if you at a Python related conference, if you present a abstract about JavaScript, it is very less likely to get selected. So it's also very important to share with the with the audience that who is the audience, right? Because if you are presenting on a very advanced topic, it's very likely that someone who is just a beginner in that particular technology, it might not be useful for them to actually attend it. So it's very important to that you clearly define that that particular talk idea that you're submitting, what is the relevant audience, so the target audience that you're adhering that particular talk towards. So those are some of the things that I'll recommend. And of course, I'll also share, Hanur, I'll share a few links that people can take a look at, which share CFP best practices. So that will be very beneficial when you are trying to submit your first ever proposal. And before you submit, I'll also recommend that you can always reach out to folks within the community who can actually review your talk proposal. And I have basically now spoken at 25 different conferences, but I still get my proposals reviewed by a few friends who are in the in my community who have even more experience, and they always give valuable feedback. So before submitting, always take valuable feedback from the relevant experienced folks in the community to ensure that whenever you're submitting a particular talk proposal, you're not just submitting without doing much research. So that's also very valuable tip that I'll share with everyone.
Perfect. That is really, really informative. So basically, whenever you're writing an abstract, make sure the abstract is to the point, and उसमें आप बता रहे हो कि what are the impact you wanted to make and what are the learnings students can have by attending that conference. And
Yeah.
इसमें कोई group है जैसे Slack channel, Discord जो students can join to make sure कि उनका proposal सही है. Like you can also give a link and I'll make sure I add in the description.
Sure. So I'm not aware of any dedicated Slack that is adhering to all different conferences. जैसे मैं आपको बताया कि there are so many different types of conferences, right? And you can join their dedicated Slack channels. So for example, I can give an example for Cloud Native Computing Foundation, which is all about cloud native technologies, Kubernetes, Docker, right? So they have a very large Slack which has like 20,000 plus members.
Wow.
So you can join that Slack, and I can always recommend you some specific individuals. You can always reach out to me as well. And some conferences also basically allow you to submit an abstract and basically request for a review of that abstract even before you make your final submission. Again, that will depend on the type of conference, because there are so many conferences that take place around the world. It will depend from the conference to conference, but it's always good enough to let's say send that particular organizers review of your to so that they can review. They may or may not review it, but you can always reach out to relevant folks in the community, your friends, right? Who could potentially review. So I'm always open to help out anyone who if you're working in the field of web dev or machine learning or DevOps, I'll be more than happy to review your talks. But I can share a number of different other resources that you can take a look at to review your CFPs.
Perfect. So thank you so much, Shivay. Once again, it was wonderful talking to you. I'm sure your knowledge is going to impact a lot of students working in the field of tech and also towards impacting in these conferences. क्योंकि impact बहुत बड़ा है towards your resume, towards
Absolutely.
your profile. It's endless. Thank you so much. Means a lot.
Thank you very much, Karan.